time for module 4.2, defense tactics against unforgiveness. Number one, again, have realistic expectations. This is a defense tactic because you're going to be frustrated if you think the world is a peaceful place of, perfection and people are perfect and situations are perfect and my parents will never hurt me, my cousins will never hurt me, my siblings will never hurt me. Well, the truth is everyone is developing. And I said it before and it's worth repeating. We are either the victims of one another's development or the benefactor, and sometimes we're both. The challenge is we just want to take the good. We just want to be the benefactors. And in relationship, we are also the victims of one another's development. And someone's the victim of our development. So to have realistic expectations about who people are and what people do, it helps you not to personalize an offense or an incident of when someone hurts you. Be realistic. Expect. I'm not saying accept. Now, there's a difference between being expecting and accepting. We don't accept it, but we expect that people make mistakes. And then we set up boundaries like we stated so that we're safe, so we don't accept it, but we expect that sometimes people make mistakes. We make mistakes. People make mistakes. So we want to be fair and giving people an opportunity to develop because we need an opportunity to develop. That's a defense tactic. In your mind, go into the relationship, the family system, knowing that no matter what type of relationship I'm in, I will be offended, I will be hurt, and I will hurt someone intentionally or unintentionally. Number two, examine the pride. Examine the pride. Have yourself examine the pride. Have your clients examine their pride. Now, this is going to be difficult because we all feel like we're good people. We all feel like I don't make mistakes. And so there's a lot of ego responding. Ego responding means that we have a persona that we like to protect. And so we'll fight, we'll deny, we'll blame because we feel like we have to be perfect in order to get love, in order to be valuable. So anything that suggests that we're not good, we take pause with that and we become resistant and reflective. So in order to examine the pride, this is very difficult. You're going to have to be mature and you're going to have to be willing to look at all sides because, we have blind sides. We have the sides that we see, the side God sees, the side others sees, and the side that, that we like to present to other people. We like to present our best selves. But if you're able to examine for a moment your pride, look at your moral superiority, you'll be shocked that you really feel like you're better than other people as it pertains to character and morality. And if you have moral superiority, you're not going to be able to forgive because you're going to feel like, well, how come they're not like me? And how could they do this? And, oh, what a horrible act. They're so abominable in what they did. And although it is wrong, there is a moral superiority attitude that we can get that we have to check at the door because we're all capable of making mistakes. And the more you walk in unforgiveness and the more you live in unforgiveness, you become more morally superior in your mindset. So you have to bring it down a notch and look, am I being proud? Because I make mistakes too. And you have to recount and ask the question and ask your client, have you ever made a mistake? Have you ever hurt someone willingly or unwillingly? And if they're so oblivious to the fact that they make mistakes, then you're going to have an issue and they're going to have a difficult time even conceiving the idea of forgiveness. Empathy. If you can think about how it must feel to be the other person, because maybe you've made a mistake too, and now you can draw and say it must be horrible to make so many mistakes. It must be horrible to be so selfish. It must be horrible, to have so much perversion. And it's not to excuse it, but it's to understand that people are struggling with their development. Remember, understanding does not make an excuse, but it makes you more empathetic to the fact that people are evolving and that they have challenges and you have challenges and I have challenges. So the empathy piece is big. And initially people are not going to want to see other people's side because they want to stay angry. They want to stay in that mood. But if you want to have the tactics against unforgiveness, you have to begin to develop empathy. Number 4, humility. There has to be some humility. And that's kind of like what we've been talking about with the pride and examining your pride and the empathy. The humility states, I will make a mistake in the future or presently, and I am going to need someone to forgive me. I'm not all that. I am going to hurt the people I love, and I'm going to try not to, but there's going to be a day where I will seek what I want over what someone else wants to a hurt. And you have to know that I'm learning how to be interdependent and how to be interconnected and how not to make everything about me. As human beings, we have the tendency to have our best interest in mind at all times. So we have to practice on purpose, including other people into our realm of concern. We don't live for other people, but we live with other people in mind. And we are supposed to live with other people in mind because we are interconnected. We are a family. And when you love people, you are connected. So if your toe hurts, then you can feel that. If your arm hurts, you can feel that. So it is remembering that I have to be humble. I have to remember that I'm going to make mistakes. Number 5, if you're going to be defensive against unforgiveness, you're going to have to develop some communication skills. All the skills that we talked about in the prior lessons, you get to assess the communication style of yourself, your clients, and your congregation. Are they acting out, or do they have mature language? It takes maturity to first calm yourself down with all those raging emotions, move to your prefrontal cortex, and design a strategy to express yourself appropriately so you're attacking the issues and not the person. And speaking up allows you not to harbor all of that information and all of that, the pain of the offense. It does no good to triangulate, meaning talk to a third party about what you're feeling, because the third party can't fix it. You have to communicate with the person who offended you so that you give them an opportunity to clear it up or to apologize. They can't apologize if they don't know what they did or what you perceived, that they did. They can't just by osmosis walk by you and say, oh, I feel like I did this. They have no way of knowing. And most people are horrible at emotional charades. So you can act out the role of somebody who's offended, the role of someone who's sad for being left out, or all of those things. When you have language, you can just communicate and speak up for yourself. And another defense is number 6, maturity, self-help maturity. Develop and make an effort to mature. Make an effort to develop yourself. And this is the process of educating your emotions. When you educate your emotions, meaning that you get your emotions under control, you acknowledge what you feel, but you also let them know that they don't run the show and that there's also thoughts to consider. There's reality, there's facts, and then there's feelings. And so you get to remind your emotions that, yes, you get to show up, but then you have to be educated by the facts. Most people are just living in their feelings. And when you've been offended, you're more likely to live in your feelings, and the facts never show up. So we want to be able to educate our emotions so that we can regulate, and then we can change. The next step in maturity is changing your paradigm, putting away childish thoughts, and becoming mature and really assessing situations from both sides and not just letting your feelings speak, but really thinking about, like we talked about, the empathy and what people have gone through and who you are and what you've been through. That means that you have to change your paradigm about, people should be perfect, or if you love me, you'll never hurt me as a family member, or you'll do everything I say, or you'll show up for me all the time, or you'll lend me money, or you won't call the police on me if I violate. You have to change your paradigm. You have to get a mature paradigm and get information about all of the things we're talking about: communication, unity, forgiveness, reconciliation, estrangement. Feed yourself information so that you can challenge the distorted thoughts that you have about how to respond when you're angry and about human behavior. Avail yourself to learning about human behavior and about emotions and all of those things so that you can challenge those immature thought processes, right? And then number 7, defense is therapy. Sometimes you may just have to go to therapy, and you have to allow someone to teach you how to challenge your thoughts, allow someone to teach you coping skills. And because if you're in unforgiveness, it's because you haven't dealt with the pain, learned how to cope with the pain, and you feel like I can't forgive. One of the key terms of people who are emotionally immature and is I can't forgive. And you may feel like it, that you can't, but what you're saying in essence is I choose not to forgive, because forgiveness is a choice. It is a choice. It's not a feeling. Once you make the decision to forgive, every other action follows that. That means you're going to be kind. That means you're going to think positive. It is an effort and it is a work. And sometimes people are upset still, so they feel like I must have permission to continue to be walk in unforgiveness. But therapy helps you to gain skills to look at the power choice you have to forgive and how to actually do it. If you say, I can't forgive, in essence, what you're saying is, I don't have the tools or I haven't made the decision. But by going to therapy, it's a step towards I'm making the decision to heal. Now I just need tools to help me forgive. And so when your clients, or when you show up to therapy, or when your congregation is in need of therapy, it's an admission that I don't have the tools. And that's okay, because everyone didn't see it modeled in their families of origin. So we need to praise people who are being bold enough to enter into therapy and to discuss an offense and to discuss a wound, because they're in a position to gain tools to help them work through the injury and the pain so that they can come out on the other side of forgiveness. You can go to a spiritual advisor. If you're a spiritual person, go to your pastor, acknowledge it, confess it. I'm hurt and I can't, I don't know how to deal with it. It's important that you begin to seek the help. Go beyond yourself and get the help that you need. If you can't help yourself, go on and stretch out and get some help from other people. Develop and build your love, because the Bible says love covers the multitude of sins. So when you're benevolent and you just love people, then you're more likely to listen. If you ever notice, like the mothers who, their children, they act up and they still love them. Jeffrey Dahmer's parents still showed up to his trials and what he did. They didn't support his action, but they loved him, so they were willing to work with him. So when you love someone, then it makes you more willing to work with them and to see their side of it and to be kind and to be respectful. So even if you can't initially pour that love on the person who hurt you, continue to do love acts, continue to love other people and to be loving, because you're keeping that love alive. And so eventually you'll be able to share that love, because you'll have it, because unforgiveness dries up love and it makes you cynical and it makes you angry and resentful and bitter to the bone. But love is a spring of life. So it helps to balance and bring equilibrium to the offense so that you can eventually overtake the pain with the love. So keep the love flowing. Keep the love and the benevolence, serving people, being kind. Encourage yourself and encourage the congregation and encourage your clients to keep the love flowing. The mind plays a huge role. We talked about it, the shifting the paradigms, and this is how you're going to do it. Because our brain has a negative bias. You have to be aware that we have a negative bias. And the negative bias, like we spoke of earlier, it's to keep us safe. It's to alert us to things that could take love from us, take safety from us, and take our self-worth from us. And most of us think self-worth will get us love and will give us connection and safety. So our negative bias is like just always on alert, 24/7, even in our dreams, watching to keep us safe. And so that bias, it looks for negativity. Just like Eve in the garden with all the wonderful things she had, she was focused on one negative thing that she wasn't supposed to have. She had the whole garden, but she was focused on the negativity, right? And so the negative bias will keep you in the unforgiveness. Someone could have done 100 nice things, but they didn't pick you up one time. Someone may have picked you up. Someone may have loaned you money like for 20 years, but one time they said, I can't loan you this money. And so you're going to remember that one time because that's the brain, the negative bias that our brain has. It takes 30 good actions to kind of remove that one bad action. So we're outnumbered with the negative bias. So, and part of shifting the paradigm is knowing that I have a lot of negativity and I'm going to have to on purpose challenge the distorts and my moral superiority, that I always have it together, and challenge that I'm always looking for the negative in people to prove that they weren't sorry and that they did want to hurt me. And now I'm looking for the positivity. I'm looking for the shifting. And one way that you can help your clients or help yourself shift your brain out of just seeing things one way, because people get fixed in because of, like I said, the way our hippocampus and our amygdala, all of the way that our brain functions, and it remembers the event. And if you want to take people through the process of shifting the lens, because they're stuck. When you're in unforgiveness, you're stuck. So this is the practice of teaching people how to shift the lens. You have them share how they feel, the experience, and then you have them share a strength that they have, and then you have them share a hope that you have. By integrating the strength and the hope, you're allowing them to move in their prefrontal cortex, and you're moving them just from the feelings. So you're allowing them to add to the story. And in forgiveness and teaching people how to walk in forgiveness, you have to add to the story. You have to add a but and an and, because forgiveness is, you hurt me, I can't believe you did this, and I'll never forget this. And you won't forget it because there is no real sea of forgetfulness in that way. The sea of forgetfulness means I'm not going to charge you for it. But it doesn't mean that God doesn't remember, and it doesn't mean that you won't remember, just that you won't remember in the sense of to pay them back, because remember means to pay back. And in some instances, in this instance. So you are choosing that the memory of the offense is still there, but when you add your strengths and the strengths of the relationship or the hope of the relationship, you can build on it, and then it bridges it, and it brings equilibrium to the thought process, and it brings equilibrium to their ability to choose to be back in relationship. But if people can only stay stuck on the offense, the experience, then there's no hope of walking in forgiveness. So the goal is to also, even if they have to go back, what was the good things about it? What did you like? What was a good memory that you had? What was a good time that you had with this person? Or what did you observe them do for other people? Because no one is 100% bad. What happens is, again, the negative bias begins to make you see people through the negative lens of that experience, and now all you see is bad. So it's important that you teach people to reintegrate the other aspects of the person who offended them, right? So we're moving people, and we're moving ourselves from the limbic system of just feeling, to the rational, to the university. This is where all the education is. So this is our university. We want to move them from just feeling, which is the amygdala, to the university, to bring it to the front. But in order to bring it to the front, we must always validate the experience by listening and not fighting them for the details. Let them tell the story the way they tell the story, and then adding a different perspective, balancing the thought process so that they can reframe and they can reframe and be focused, and add, some other components to it. I'm hurt, but I'm still here, because the hope brings in that I'm not totally destroyed by the offense. I'm not powerless. I still can move forward. So we have to kind of, to bring in that hope element to pump up ourselves and other people, that it's not over, because the offense is also an indicator of loss. And so you feel like all is lost. My life is over because I lost my innocence. My life is over because I lost, your trust, or I lost faith in you, or whatever it is. I lost the relationship we used to have. So infusing hope into the scenario allows the person who's been offended to be empowered and to know that it's not over. I don't have to stay stuck here. I get to move. So you want to add the but and the and. I was hurt and I'm still going to be okay. I can love again. I can trust again. I was, hurt and I was deceived, but we're all human. Humans disappoint one another. When you add those flowery words of but and, it allows a way of escape from being stuck in unforgiveness, and it bridges you and your clients and your congregation into hope of being happy again, which kind of helps to mediate the emotional feelings of this was the worst thing that ever happened to me and I'll never escape it. And so when someone feels like that, then it's hard for them to move into forgiveness. So we want to give them a glimpse of life after the trauma, life after the betrayal, life after the incest, life after the pain. You have to help them to be able to visualize and know that there is life after the injury, life after the injury. And so we get to choose. We get to choose. And we're actually acknowledging the pain, but helping the clients and ourselves go from a victim to being healed. Because you can't occupy both seats. So the objective in adding and but is to bring in choice. Like you can stay in the stuck, offended position, or you can decide to move on. Now, here's the caveat to this. What happens to people when they are offended, it's a triangle. Cartman talks about a triangle. And the 3 triangle is you can become the victim, the aggressor, or you can become the rescuer. And in those mixes, sometimes there's a benefit to becoming to staying the victim, because now someone owes you. And you don't owe the world anything. You just, bestow upon me mercy, kindness, goodness, because I've been inflicted. It's almost like being the patient. Some people love being the patient, and they have Munchausen syndrome where, parents make their kids sick because they want the sympathy. So sometimes people love the attention and the sympathy of being the wounded one. So you have to check that. And you have to understand there's a secondary game. Ask yourself and ask other people, what do you like? And this is hard because people don't like to admit this, but bringing it in a way that's not attacking what are some of the benefits that you've received from being the victim, or this incident? Are people nicer to you? Are people more understanding? Because if people are nicer and if you get more attention, then you're least likely to forgive, because holding this grudge is getting you more attention. People are off your back. People are not demanding things from you because you're hurt, you've been molested, you've been abused, you've been betrayed. So you're fragile and people don't expect things from you. So you have to understand in that triangle, are you being the victim? Or are you being the aggressor? Is it the aggression that's serving you, where you're getting revenge, or other people are joining in, and now there's aggressiveness, and which is causing the forgiveness circle to get bigger and bigger, and you're not helping the situation? Or are you tracking, like I said, rescuers? Victims attract rescuers. You attract intercessors. You attract people who want to fight for you, and then you attract people who want to rescue you, and you can become addicted to being rescued. You become addicted to the martyr of, look what they did to me. So you have to be careful in family systems, importantly, that those are the roles. And if the person is the victim and you're just constantly rescuing them and fighting for them and, sticking up for them and protecting them and covering them and being angry with them, then you're keeping the cycle going, and they're least likely to be empowered and walk in the status of freedom. And so you can't be both. You have to help the person who's been offended decide, do you want to you want this to be, do you want to be tortured by this, or do you want this event to tutor you? You can be tortured or tutored, but you can't be both. And so you have to weigh the cost and decide. And just in the choice is empowering, because when you feel offended and you feel victimized, then you feel like there's no choice. So it's important that we present to ourselves and to others that we're working with. You have to decide at some point, do you want to continue to be tortured by this, or do you want this event to be the tutor, and you want to learn from it and grow from it? Do you want to continue to be furious, or do you want to turn to curious and think about, why did they do this? What can I learn from this? How can this develop me? Like, to research it and to find out, where did I make the mistake? What role did I play in this? Did I not have boundaries? Was I looking to be a people pleaser? Was I afraid to confront? What role did I play? Become curious. What role did I play in this? Because that helps in the forgiveness process and the reconciliation process. So you have to decide, do I want to another example, do I want to be wounded, or do I want the wisdom? You can forever be wounded, or you could just decide, I'm going to walk in wisdom. I'm going to make this work for me. I'm going to make this work for me. I am going to come out of this. I can't change what happened, but I can change the narrative, because now I'm wiser. And now I understand what I need to do, or how human behavior is, how to protect myself, and how to be developed, and how to forgive, and how to be morally courageous. And there's so much to learn, and you get to learn it, and you get to demonstrate that you are no longer just the victim, but you are now walking in victory. So you get to decide what is most attractive. And for some people, I'm telling you, unfortunately, being the victim is more attractive. You get more empathy and sympathy, and you're less accountable, and you don't have to show up, because you're injured and you're frail and you're fragile. But that helpless state leads to hopelessness, and it creates more anger. The cost of being the victim is very expensive. You miss out on intimate relationships. You miss out on fully developing, and it's just too great. And you can still have the things that you get from being the victim when you find healthy people, because healthy people should not just love you when you're hurt, because then that's how trauma bonds are built. We went through this together, and families do it all the time. They build trauma bonds. Remember, they did this to us. Remember that molestation? And now we form a connection based on the pain. And that becomes our common ground of why we're connected. And we don't have anything new to connect with. So the relationship is stunted in the pain. And now we're not having good memories that we're building. We're just always connected, associated by pain. Watch the trauma bonds. There's a lot of trauma bonds in families. And you have to watch it, because while it feels secure and net and you need the support, that's the essence of the relationship. I call it friends in a foxhole, because you went through that time together, you feel closer. And the only thing keeps you connected is hating the person who did it, or being angry together. So that's not healthy. And so you have to know that you can build a healthy relationship outside of connecting with people to be angry at the mother, father, sister, cousins, brother. Happens all the time. People hook up, and now they're all mad at one person, and then someone else falls out with that person. So they go to this group that's mad at that person. And that's how you have family division and war. They take on the campaign of unforgiveness, and they have that trauma bond and that anger bond. No more anger bonds, and people will want you to join them in their anger bond. So just look at the roles and look at the gains that people are trying to get. The secondary gains we talk about are the empathy, the triangulation, the attention, the memorializing the pain. Like, don't memorialize the pain. Our memory is set to help you do it, but you have to on purpose decide not to memorialize the pain and not to be loyal to the suffering. You get to move on. It does not excuse the behavior. You have to reinforce that. It doesn't excuse the behavior, and it doesn't invalidate the incidents. For you to be happy and for you to move on does not say it didn't happen. And you have to assure yourself, your clients, the congregation, and the people in your family, me moving on does not say that it didn't happen and it wasn't offensive. Me moving on is not saying that I don't love you. So that becomes something to look at. And you have to focus on wellness. Focus on wellness. Choosing wellness, because unforgiveness is a disease. Even medical science is classifying it as a disease. Unforgiveness is a disease. So if we want wellness, we have to focus on the we in wellness. And the we in wellness is I'm focusing on connecting in a positive way. I'm focusing on unity. I'm focusing on things that build. This is my tactic. This is how I'm going to get through it. I want wellness, so I'm going to do things that promote unity. What happens with the other side of it, if you're focusing on illness, then it's the I. The isolation in illness is the I in illness is isolation. So if there's isolation, there's always going to be illness. And if there's wellness, there's always going to be we-ness. So you have to decide as a defensive tactic, am I going to focus on we-ness or I-ness, which is illness? I-ness, selfishness, is always equated to illness. It is an enemy against your health and the health of other people. So wellness, we-ness versus I-ness. And then there is what I talked about with the narratives. More specifically, there's literally a therapy called narrative therapy, whereas you get to change how you tell the story. That's the only change. The change how you tell the story. That is the difference between night and day. How you narrate. You are the narrator. I am the narrator. Our clients in our congregation, they are the narratives of their story. Some things they cannot change. They cannot change the abandonment. They cannot change the sexual abuse. They cannot change the betrayal. But they get to add a twist. The story is not over. They continue to have the power of the pen, and they get to tell the story. They get to make it a beautiful ending, or they get to make it a crash cut ending. The person who offended you is not responsible for the ending of the narrative story. You and I are responsible for how we respond and how we continue to write. They may have written a segment that you can't erase. Betrayal, parents on drugs, sexual abuse, whatever. But the other part, the pen gets handed back to you. The power is in the pen, and you have the pen. And the pen can only be implemented correctly if your narrative, the way you think. So after we shift, you remember we talked about shifting, adding to the story. Now you have the power of the pen. How do you want this to end? What lessons do you want to learn? What positive things can we extrapolate from this offense? The offense is horrible, but it's not the end of the story. It's a part of the chapter. It's not the book. Unless you make it the book. If you want to make it the book and you want to make it the ending, like I was sexually abused and I was miserable and I lived in isolation and I had a horrible life, the end. You get to choose, but by goodness, you get to choose also to turn the story around through narrative therapy or through narrative writing and journaling or narrative scripting in your mind. So you have to get the clients to imagine, and you have to let them know the power of the pen, the power to think, the power to move into creativity. How would you like the world to be now? Because responding is a prefrontal cortex operation, and it is a power operation because you have to plan. But it's difficult and impossible to plan and to have power over the pen in a constructive way if you're just in your feelings. So it's important to get the feelings out, get the pen, and then create. Create the life that you want now. Do you want to stay in unforgiveness? Do you want to be a forgiving person? What do you want? Do you want to always have the empathy and be babied and be and forgiveness bonds with people, unforgiveness bonds with people? You have the pen. I have the pen. Our clients have the pen. The congregation needs the pen. And they need to know that although you were victimized by the offense, now you have the victory of being able to write out your ending. She lived happily ever after. He overcame and lived happily ever after. That is the responsibility of the person who has been wounded. And so by doing that and changing the story, adding to the story changes the story because you can't change the event. It allows you, like I stated, to get online with your prefrontal cortex. And so in some of the practices to becoming online with your prefrontal cortex is a breathing technique. They have different type of breathing techniques, 4x4 breathing. They have the even breathing where you breathe in and you breathe out. This is all important because it accesses your prefrontal cortex, because your mind and your sympathetic nervous system is saying fight, flight, run, freeze. It's like just really crazed. But if you want to get back online, if you want to tap into your university, breathing techniques, breathe in, hold for 4, exhale 4, like you're blowing out a birthday cake. It's worth doing. I'm going to do it again. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. And by getting your client and yourself to practice this, you're putting yourself in a position to come back online, to calm down, and to be in the here and now where there's timing. You're safe here. It's not happening now. And to practice the mindfulness, which is the here and now, which is I'm observing what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. I'm observing what I'm feeling. You can do some sensory stuff to ground you. You could put some chewing gum in your mouth and just enjoy the flavor and describe it, because it takes you from your amygdala floating and it centers you back into your body and your precision and your ability to pay attention and to be online. That's something you can do with mindfulness, becoming aware, describing, participating in the here and now. And then not denying, but delaying so that you can react, so you won't react and you can respond. Breathing and mindfulness helps you to respond. So it puts a pause in your ability. It puts a pause in what's going on so that you can have time to think and process. So, and you have to become good at that, because your emotions, remember, there's no time frame and everything is just sporadic. So the breathing, the mindfulness slows things down, allows you to have control over your emotions. Empowerment. And then there's opening your heart. After you calm down, this is also an advanced level technique for the prefrontal cortex. Open your mind, your unconscious and your conscious mind, to the idea of forgiving. This is a tactic. How would my life be if I forgave? Just imagine. Just go there. You think about it, have your client think about it, have the person in your congregation think about it. What would my life be like if I weren't carrying this anger, resentment, and trauma in my body? And then you might have to help them suggest, what was it like before? Because you might have to give them a prior experience so that they can remember that once upon a time they did feel safe. Or even in movies, what do you see? What do you imagine it looks like? When you see people living and running and happy and loving, what do you think that looks like? Because you have to help them visualize so that they can actually have a goal. The thought is a seed, and then it develops. Forgiveness, the thought of forgiveness becomes a seed that, when watered, can equal forgiveness. And then you can have them think, and you can think of a loved one that you've forgiven in the past. How did that feel? Use that experience. Think of a time when you were forgiven. How did that feel? Think of times where maybe God has forgiven you. It's about opening your heart and allowing the love to flow, and to know that if your heart is not open, it's closed and you're not able to get the love that you need. So during this time, as your heart is opening, you're acknowledging your faults, you're replacing your thoughts, and you're looking at the weight of unforgiveness as you open your mind and your heart to, the forgiveness process and how light your life would be if you were able to forgive. And remember, after you are able to open your heart and then you want to move into the conversation, you get to address the violation. And you start addressing the violation. Let me back up. You start addressing the violation with yourself. And that's what mindfulness does. It allows you to look on the experience and get honest, get heart to heart with yourself, and really know that you get to address and protest what happened. And then after you protest and you acknowledge, because denial takes your brain offline because it's all in the feelings and you're just ignoring. But once you acknowledge it, it happened, it's real, and I feel this way, unpack the feelings, not just the anger, keep going, keep digging underneath that anger. You're going to find that you feel disrespected, you feel unvalued, you feel disconnected, you feel unloved, you feel scared, you feel fearful that people don't respect you enough to take care of you. So underneath all of that, you got to keep going, be brave, and keep going and keep going. And then you can heal it. You can heal it if you deal with, if you can deal with it, you can heal it. But if you don't deal with it, you can't heal it. I know that sounds poetic, but it's the truth. You cannot heal what you won't confront. All of the emotions, allow yourself to be vulnerable to it. That's a tactic and helps you overcome it. And then you use I statements. I statements help you to own your feelings. Not you did this, you do that. I feel hurt. I feel abused. I feel devalued. I feel objectified. I feel nasty, dirty. You get to allow yourself to examine what you feel so that you can heal what you feel and bring in your prefrontal cortex to rationalize it. And then you get to grieve what was lost. You do get to grieve. You do get to grieve what the event meant, what you lost, the respect, the innocence, all of it. And then you have to move into reality acceptance. The truth is, it is what it is. All humans, we're all human, and it happens. And you also get to acknowledge, I need to heal. This is what you need to accept in reality. We're all human, it happened, and I need to heal. I'll say it again for the people in the back. We're all human, it happened, and I need to heal. Those are facts. You can't get away from that. We're all human. Unless I go to Mars and find people there, I'm always going to be surrounded by humans. So I have to accept that this is part of the human process, learning on each other. It's part of it. It happened. I can't erase it. I can't magically make it go away. Making people suffer will not make it go away. And most importantly, I need to heal, and I can heal. That's reality acceptance. And then you get to say, okay, in all this reality, what do I want that I can get? What do I want? Do I have unrealistic wants? What do I want that I can get? More than anything, do I want to be happy? Do I want to have good health? Do I want to be mature and forgiving? We get to decide that. And then there is a choosing to forgive and to do things that support the decision. Because after you choose to forgive, it is a 100% decision. Sometimes there's a feeling involved. I just feel like forgiving. Most of the times it won't be, the feelings won't be there. The decision can be there without the feelings, because the decision comes from here, the emotions come from here. So when you make the decision, then every behavior after that has to support it. If I say I'm going to forgive, then I have to think kind of the person, think kindly of the person. I have to be willing to hear the apology. I have to be willing to not seek revenge, not to want the demise of the person who hurt me. And then you want to just visualize well for the other person and visualize releasing the person. Because when you visualize releasing the person, you're going to feel the benefit of being released. So releasing the person actually releases you. It releases you from the pain and the trauma. What a benefit. It releases them. We're interconnected, and it releases us. And it shows God that we understand that he releases us and he loves us. And we become involved in the circle of releasing. Because if you're not in the circle of releasing and you're in the law of holding, now you've just entered into a different paradigm, and you're holding and you're being held. You're holding and you're being held. So you have to decide what paradigm or what circle of action do you want to be in? Do you want to be in the holding pattern and the unforgiven and the sick pattern, or do you want to be in the released pattern where you're being released and you are releasing? I'm being released and I'm releasing. I'm holding and I'm being held. The decision is ours. And looking at that, further benefits need to be assessed to create motivation, such as personal development. I want to be whole. I want to be a mature person. I want to not be hindered and immobilized by the actions of other people. I want to be who I am. I want to choose who I am. I don't want what happened to me to choose who I am. I want to be who I want to be. If I want to be loving, kind, forgiving, I want to be that. And I don't want the actions of others to dictate who I am. I want to take control of my life and how I show up in the world. You get to decide that. You get to choose wellness as a motivation. Forgiveness is pain's medication. Forgiveness is the only thing that heals the pain of offense. Forgiveness is a balm, a healing balm. And it is the only healing, it's the only thing that can heal an offense. Forgiveness is a healing balm. It directly heals the cells and it directly heals your brain. It's a healing, it's an anesthesia that is more powerful than medication or any of those things. Your healing and is in your hands. The injury was not in your hands, but the healing is in your hand. You have the potion. You have the ingredient. It cost humility and it cost for you to let go of the resentment, but you have to be motivated that when I forgive, I'm releasing healing to myself, and I've entered into that realm of healing, and I get to send healing and restoration to the person. They need it. They're messed up. They need it. And life is going to work them out because they're going to deal with what they did. And so then you're deciding to show your family members what health and forgiveness looks like, and how there's strength and forgiving and walking in unity. And your kids get to enjoy each other, your grandkids, your legacy. You get to be an example in the earth of forgiveness and the power of forgiveness. Oh, there's power. And you get to be a representative. You get to be a Navy SEALsman. You get to be part of the elite club. And the world needs a few good soldiers. Yeah, some family members are soldiers. They're walking in forgiveness when other people are choosing not to. So you get to decide the legacy you want to leave, and you get to decide how you want your family to be impacted. Do you want to be a negative influence or a positive? Remember, change. One person changes in a system, the system changes, and you want to be a positive change. Finally, forgiveness is self-disclosure. It is disclosing I'm not perfect, and neither are my family members, and it's okay. I love them, and we can work through this, and we can set up some boundaries, and we can keep each other safe. But forgiveness is self-disclosure. I'm not perfect, neither is anyone else. I'm going to need forgiveness. I have needed forgiveness, and I'm not perfect. So there's the humility. Forgiveness is self-disclosure. Forgiveness releases negative entanglements. You don't want to be connected to people who you say you're not in relationship with, but you are in relationship with them in a negative way. You're stuck in the cycle of holding, being unforgiving and not being forgiven. You have to stay connected in that negative way, because we're either connected to people in a positive way or a negative way. That's the law of entanglement. One particle impacts the other particle, and when one particle moves, the other particle moves. So if you move in unforgiveness, you're moving in the negativity. You get to decide. You get to decide to release the pain in your cells and your neurons, where all the memories and all the pain is stored. You get to heal that. You get to choose well-being. It's a matter of life and death. Forgiveness is a matter of life and death. And guess what? You get to choose to live. I get to choose to live. We get to encourage people to choose life and to choose freedom and to choose healing by forgiving.